Welcome back to Flashpoint. Let's talk about the latest in the U.S. Senate race here in North Carolina. Democrats have pretty much agreed upon Sherry Beasley being their candidate. Meanwhile, Republicans, they are battling it out. Former Governor Pat McCrory continues to lead in polls. Meanwhile, Ted Budd and Mark Walker continue to fight to capture a wing of the party that tilts further right ideologically. Former President Donald Trump has endorsed Budd and has unsuccessfully tried to get Walker out of the race. The political action group Club for Growth plans to spend $10 million between now and the election to boost Budd's profile. The group has already spent $4 million to support Budd and attack McCrory. Joining us now, former Union County GOP chair, longtime friend of the show, Dan Barry. Dan, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, Ben. It's great to see you again.
It's nice to have you on. All right, so size up the state of this race. The primary is coming up in May. Where do you see things?
Wow. You know, it's interesting because we're in the middle of party reorganization stuff. So I've seen a lot of these folks in the last couple of weeks. I think now it is a two-horse race with somebody just kind of right on their tail. And then, you know, a late arrival coming around the corner is Marjorie Eastman. Don't underestimate what happens. You know, you in your setup, you talked a little bit about the McCrory-Budd race. All the data indicates that McCrory is out front. The Trump effect for Ted Budd was pretty significant early on because, you know, Ted was down in low double digits. And with the Trump endorsement, he jumped up pretty quickly. All indications are that McCrory is outside the margin of error on that as we approach primary day, but Budd is in this. Mark Walker, I see him all the time. He's a great guy. I teased him. I said, you know, you're everybody's number two. What happens? He said, number two gets you to the runoff. And then we're on to the races. So let's, you know, it's just way too often, way too close to call at this point. But I would lend to tell you that McCrory is out front.
If you were to take a snapshot of this race right now and try to glean different views and perspectives off of it, what would you say this says about the state of the GOP in North Carolina right now?
You know, you're asking a question without asking, and I'd tell you the Trump effect did not have nearly as substantial a boost to Ted Budd as I believe the Budd campaign was expecting it to have. You know, I think the Politico story that broke, when was this been, in January, where there was a rumor that Trump was going to withdraw the endorsement, I think, or he was very frustrated with the lack of performance of the Budd campaign, and then there was a quick retraction of that. I think that, you know, we all know Trump's temperament. And he doesn't like to come in second. And so I think that, you know, Budd's not being able to break through and mount a lead in this election is probably frustrating President Trump. The second piece of this is Club for Growth. In full disclosure, I'm a Club for Growth fellow. I've been involved with that organization for a long time. But to see that they have kind of tried to put their thumb on the scales with both the U.S. Senate race and then multiple U.S. House races, I believe concerns voters. You know, folks in North Carolina, Ben, don't like to be told by outsiders what to do.
And not only that, but I think you and I get in this and we follow this stuff. But there was an unaffiliated voter I know who saw that McCrory ad and he walked away. He's like, wait, am I supposed to like McCrory after this, or am I not supposed to like him? And I said, well, you got to understand, this is targeted towards a very few group of people in the Republican Party. And so unaffiliateds or even Democrats might say, oh, he worked with Joe Biden. Oh, he said these level-headed things. And they might think this is a great thing. But in the Republican primary, these things are not meant to be a good thing.
So we can talk about primary politics all day long. The Democrats have the exact same challenge as they try to break through. But, you know, my first reaction was, which McCrory act? Because they're just so voluminous, especially here in the Charlotte market. But I think what you got to reach out and say is, when he's a political editorialist on the radio is one thing, and when he's governor of North Carolina after a hurricane and the president of the United States shows up with relief money, the governor has some responsibilities to be a host to the president of the United States. And smacking him around for that, I think, is extraordinary. The base Republican voter, Are they catching the nuance? Probably not.
Many people would also say there's a third one there, and that was the mayor of Charlotte, which some people would say was a different one of all those other ones. Let's talk about the Supreme Court nomination this week, because it played prominently on a national scale, but also you saw two Carolina Republicans playing a pretty big role in the questioning. First, let's listen from Lindsey Graham.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how faithful would you say you are in terms of religion? You know, I go to church probably 3 times a year, so that speaks poorly of me. Or do you attend church regularly?
Well, Senator, I am reluctant to talk about my faith in this way just because I want to be mindful of the need for the public to have confidence in my ability to separate out my personal views.
Now we want to hear from Tom Tillis. He asked her a question about, as public defender, her levels of compassion and if it would impact her work in the Supreme Court, specifically referencing inmates being released when COVID-19 was spreading across prisons 2 years ago. Take a listen to Tom Tillis.
What I said in that statement that you read was it would seem as though something like a deadly pandemic rampant in the jails would justify releasing everyone. But I go on to say, in that very opinion, Congress has indicated that we have to take each case individually.
I feel after watching this the same way I felt after watching Amy Coney Barrett's nomination process. The only people who come out looking good in this are the actual nominees themselves, because the senators, all of them across both parties for different reasons and different nominations, never quite come out looking as good as they think they might think they do.
I wish we could get a class on the role of advise and consent, because since Ronald Reagan, whichever party of the presidency and the minority party in the House, in the Senate Judiciary Committee, has almost taken it on themselves just to go on the attack automatically. If she qualified to be on the U.S. Supreme Court, I'm not in a position to make that decision, but clearly the President of the United States thinks she is, and she must be one of the highest ranking or thought-provoking jurists in the country. You know, what's interesting to me is when the Democrats are interviewing the Republican candidates for nominees for the Supreme Court, all these personal questions are really important and they need to be answered. When the Republican members of the committee are asking similar questions to Democratic nominees, now all of a sudden they're off limits. So it's really kind of interesting to watch this play out. The Senate is so close. I still think she breaks through. It is what it is.
I mean, yeah, I don't. It's become so toxic and poisonous. That
I'm not answering your question. I know, but
there was not a right or wrong answer. I just think it's unfortunate the tone that things take. And I mean, you have advise and consent, and you want to ask good hard questions, and I think people expect that. But then at times it just seemed like it take a nasty turn. Same thing happened with the Trump nominees as well.
Well, but she's not answering the questions either, Ben. I mean, when one of her answers is, I can't define what a woman is. And remember, I wasn't watching this. We had the Heritage Foundation people in town, and that was consuming most of my time this week. But not being able to answer just some of those fundamental questions, and I know where that was leading to.
That's the thing. But, I mean, the answer was sort of as out there as the question itself. I mean, that's the problem with these is that you get these politically motivated question and answers, and then I don't know, for folks watching at home,
they want to hide from the answer because they're scared of what the next question is going to be.
Probably so. All right,
and you're the reporter. Imagine you being in the room.
That's why I sympathize with the hard questions. I don't mind the hard questions. I just think sometimes that they're done for the purpose of people watching at home and not actually to get to the.
You mean that you are so jaded you think this is made for TV?
I know. I know. That's why Senator Sass was making the argument of why we should not have cameras in the courtroom. And I never agreed with that, but after he made that point, I'm like, you know what? He's on to something. All right, Dan Barry.
I'm probably not your best GOP interviewer here, because here I am talking about it being made for TV because the Republicans are interviewing. But
we appreciate it nonetheless. Dan, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Ben, thank you. It's great to talk to you.
All right, take care. More Flashpoint after this.